to On the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Skintight, and Cody's Yacht, Paradise Blue, Othello, Our Lady of 121st Street, and Carmen Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. And good evening, Leslie.
Good evening, Charlie. So it's summertime, and who said the living was easy? Listen to all the plays that we've been to.
I know, so many. So we got to get right to it. So we can cover them all this evening.
Okay.
And we will start with Skintight. And that is, as you may have gathered, starring Idina Menzel, who is in a non-singing role for a change. Very unusual to see her doing that on Broadway. And this is by Joshua Harmon, who gave us the Drama Desk Award-winning Admissions this year, which both of us loved.
Very different from his other two plays.
Extremely.
You didn't care for A Bad Jews, which I did.
Right.
And you also didn't care that much for...
For Significant Other, though I did like it better than Bad Jews.
This is reminiscent of Significant Other. It's mining the same territory.
And Bad Jews to a lesser extent.
You're right. There are Jewish characters. And
there are Jewish characters and gay characters.
Yes, acting badly.
So he's back on more familiar ground here.
More comedic ground.
Right.
Admissions was not really a comedy. It was
no,
serious,
although it did have some very humorous...
I think he writes funny. I think he knows how to do that.
He does. He does. And here we have Menzel again. I think this is the first time I've ever seen her on stage in a non-singing role.
You know, the problem for me was that she reminded me of Laura Benanti the whole time.
Well, I think that's good.
I mean, it was a role Laura Benanti could have played.
You know what? I agree. But she plays it beautifully,
she does.
especially
she really
in the beginning. She's this middle-aged woman, 40-something.
Oh, God, you say middle-aged, I'm thinking Idina Menzel in Rent.
Well, it's been a long, long time since Rent, I'm afraid.
And Wicked.
And Wicked. In fact, my daughter said, you know, she did Rent and she did Wicked. That's all she has to do. She's already established.
That's true. That's very true.
But thank God she's done quite a bit more since then. Now we have this, again, 40-year-old something woman. Her ex-husband has just married like a 24-year-old woman.
He's engaged to her. He's not married to her.
All right, engaged.
Throwing a big engagement party. The whole family's invited, but not, she and her son are not invited.
Or the son was, I think the son was invited.
Well, he might have been, but he didn't go, so.
Whatever. So she's back. Her father is a rich Calvin Klein-like designer. And it's interesting because you would not, looking at them, and he's played by Jack Wetherall.
Who looks very, very non-Jewish.
Right, and acts very, very non-Jewish.
But he worked very hard on that, and I buy that, you know?
I guess, to an extent, but sometimes I wonder, are these two really father and daughter? Because I guess you have to assume she takes after her mother.
She has maintained her New Yorkisms, and he hasn't.
Right.
He's
Even
dropped
though
them as a very...
she lives in L.A. and he lives in New York. Anyway, she comes home unexpectedly, only to find out that he's taken up with a young man who is literally her son's age.
Yes, and he's a hustler, and he was a former porn star.
Yes.
And they seem to have a loving relationship, but it's exactly what happened with her husband and her husband's younger girlfriend.
And the recurring theme of the play is how important is physical beauty.
Right.
And the conclusion seems to be very important.
And I think it's really lovely. This says so much without saying anything about it. But just having these are the places where a doctor would mark nips and tucks on
that's about, I think, 30% of the play. The other 2/3 is a typical dysfunctional family, typical in the Joshua Harmon world.
Harmon
world.
Yes.
And I've never been a big fan of his dysfunctional characters.
It doesn't quite land, but I did love seeing Jack Wetherall, who I went to see back in the mid-'80s and became a director because of the play he was in, so I have a fond feeling for Jack Wetherall, who plays the dad. And he plays him as a man turning 70, trying to be 50. Right. And almost succeeding in many ways, and he certainly has the physique for it and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And there's an extra character, and he's mysterious. He's the butler, but he's very young and very attractive. But he's not as young as the boy. Right.
Well, that's Will Britton does a good job.
No, that's the boy. I'm talking about the butler.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the boy is. That's what I meant.
Yes, but the butler.
That's Stephen Carrasco, I believe.
Yes. Yes, but the thing is that there's a backstory to the butler that comes out. It's semi-mysterious.
Right. We have
I
to-
caught it right away. Anyway, I enjoyed it a lot because it was a summer rainy night, and it was like watching a good television show.
Okay, I agree, but when I go to see a play off Broadway, I want something
Agreed.
more than a television show. And what I loved Idina Menzel in this, I thought her role was good. And let me tell you, anyone who would leave her has to be crazy.
Oh, you got to type.
If you're obsessed with beauty.
You got to type, man. You do.
Okay.
Anyway, what would you give it?
Well, first I want to say a word about Ellie Geld as the son.
Oh, okay.
Who, like Grandpa, is also gay, and to borrow a line from Me Girls, almost too gay to function.
Yes, but Dad is not. Dad had been married. Dad was passing, and in the closet for many years. So the son, the grandson.
Well, no, we're talking the grandfather now.
The grandfather. I'm sorry. Well, her dad.
Well, yes, her dad.
Okay, but so
Right.
the difference between the kind of gay that we're talking about is interesting, also.
Right, intergenerational.
Yes, and Daniel Auken did a lovely job of directing, and the set looks as if came out of a Restoration Hardware catalog. It's all gray, and
Yes.
it's
But
very.
I'd
What would
love
you
to
give
go
it?
into more details, but we do have to
What
move
would you
on.
give it?
I would give it 3.
Yeah, I think that's. I do one of those half for the acting, but it would come out to 3 anyway. So 3 is a
Okay.
good.
All
3 is a
right.
good number. Not sure if that's the number we're going to come up with for Dan Cody's Yacht, which. Now, the phrase Dan Cody's Yacht sounded familiar, and I wondered where it came from, and I in a million years I wouldn't have guessed. It's a quote from The Great Gatsby, and that colors the entire way this play is written and the characters who are in it, because it's about haves and have-nots and what they can get. And Anthony Giardina, who wrote the play, also wrote the Conversation City, which late John Maxwell starred in, and she was wonderful, and I miss her so much at the theater. And this is not a play of that caliber. That was an exceptional play of ideas. This tries to be a play of ideas, and it almost gets there, and it goes astray for me. I don't believe some of the characters and their interactions. But it takes place in Boston, a well-to-do father at the private school of his
No. Well-to-do father.
public school in a good district where
Right.
the mother works.
Where this woman who is a teacher there has her own, but lives in a town with a
Right.
inferior school that
Right.
her daughter goes to, and ironically, her daughter is a brilliant student.
Valedictorian, a poet.
And his
yes.
son is a
yeah.
terrible student.
Right.
And the towns are meeting to decide whether they should merge the school districts, so the 2 schools would be intermingling. He is very much against it. She, the teacher, thinks is for it, but he's trying to persuade her.
And what he
otherwise.
does is he offers her stuff. He offers her things she doesn't have, not just for the daughter, but for a way of getting themselves out of what they're
Well,
in.
ironically, she has a say in it, because if they did merge it, her daughter could end up in the better school.
Exactly.
But the problem is, and I'm thinking, this would make
And he
a
wants
great
her to raise his son's grade.
book into admissions.
Yes, I was thinking that, yes.
But the problem is, we think that's the story, but that's not really the story.
No.
Because that is resolved at the latest midway through the point.
And then the kids, then there's parts about the kids and
There's part
their
about the
interactions.
kids. There's part about how he is helping her with her investments.
Right.
So it's here, there, and everywhere.
But that's still dangling the carrot.
But it continues after the vote.
Now, getting
that-
back to the title, because the title comes up again.
So after he even, he's still reaching out to her and offering her stuff, even after she has nothing
we
to offer
don't-
him.
yeah.
We do know.
Well, but I know. But I don't want to. We don't need to tell too much of the story. What I wanted to say was
That's the problem. There isn't a
the
story.
title of Dan Cody's Yacht.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that Dan Cody's Yacht is, he thinks, the guy in the story thinks, is where Gatsby was assaulted by someone rich, and that's what got him started on his life of
Assaulted or
excess.
assisted?
No, assaulted.
Assaulted.
Assaulted. And I never read that into Gatsby. Jesus, you know, I don't remember how old I was when I first read Gatsby, but that isn't what I got, and I don't remember this. And it's just a passing phrase. So it's interesting that somebody could take that and make, you know, knit it into all of this. But I have to say a word about the actors who I thought were, you know, Rick Holmes we saw in Junk. And you don't remember, yeah, oh no, this was somebody else. Never mind, I was thinking of something, but it wasn't. Anyway, no, it's fine. The cast was really uniformly good.
Yes.
I thought. The direction is by our old friend Doug Hughes. This is at Manhattan Theater Club. Doug is almost like a resident director there at this point. And the set was by John Lee Beatty. And I would not have assumed that all of these cubistic things, which look very much like David Corn's, would be his style. But they move very well. It's very cinematic. You go from one scene to another.
Yes.
And that's about it, you know? I mean, you go from one scene to another.
So we're talking about two plays where we basically left humming the scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And
By the way,
who played the mother? The teacher?
The teacher, it's an actress I don't really know, but her name is Kathy, wait, no, that's her, Angela Russo. No, that's the daughter, Russo. Kristen Bush. Kristen Bush. It's not someone that I.
Well, it's someone I'd like to get to know. I
did
enjoy the performance.
Very believable.
So good scenery, good performances, but a play that really was just all over the place and never really decided what it wanted to be about. And for that, I will give it 2.5 playbills.
Yeah, I think you're right. I did want to say one quick thing about the playbills. Take a look at guess what month it is, because they're all with our pride flag, and it's June. It's Gay Pride Month.
It
so
is.
all of the playbills.
We're going to talk about Carmen Jones a little further.
Yeah.
And to get to the CSC on 13th, I had to go through.
I couldn't get through.
It's really become something.
Well,
I've
you
seen
walked. I was in a cab, and they sent us back up to 34th Street, so I have not seen Carmen Jones. I'm still going to try to go.
I tried to walk through it. I have never seen so many braless women in one place. Who knew a gay pride parade could be so entertaining for straight men?
Yes, well, there you go.
There
okay.
we go.
All right.
We're going to talk about now Paradise Blue, directed by Ruben Santiago Hudson, and written by
Dominique Morisseau.
Thank you.
I will help you out there.
All right. And this takes place, I'm not really sure, 1949, I take that back. It's in a blues club known as Black Bottom, down in Detroit. And interesting that it's 1949 because the place is centered for urban redevelopment.
Well, that's after the war, and that's when the urban redevelopment first started, where they would take run-down black areas and move the black people out.
And it is populated with characters named Blue, Pumpkin, Corn, Pea Sam, and Silver. And Blue, I believe, is the owner of he's a trumpet player.
He inherited from his father, who was also a musician.
And he would like to sell the place and has no shortage of buyers, including the city, including a musician who plays in his band, and including this lady named Silver, who just slinks in.
Slinks in, man.
She could be on our way from Carmen Jones.
Well, I didn't see it, but yes, the Black Widow spider in the mix, yes.
And so it's an interesting, he's trying to get out.
But the story starts with his getting shot. The first scene of the play is this man blowing on a trumpet, plays a mournful song, puts the trumpet down, and gets shot. That's the opening scene. And then we get all the backstory that leads up to that moment. We find out who shot him. Kind of like
Sunset Boulevard.
Yes, we find out who shot him. Well, yes, okay, yes.
Yes. Except this is not Sunset Boulevard by any means.
But it was so soulful, and I loved each of the characters. I thought they each had a wonderful thing to deliver to what was going on. And there were characters who were similar to Carmen Jones. There's the innocent girl and the slinky woman, and you got a sense of that. But the difference is that this was written by a black woman, and Carmen Jones was written by two white guys, who stole it off a dead white guy. Yes.
Well, no, in that case, one white guy who stole it from another one.
It's Rodgers and Hammerstein, isn't it?
No, just Hammerstein.
Just Hammerstein.
It's with Bizet's music.
Yes.
and Hammerstein's book and lyrics.
I didn't realize that. I thought they were okay.
No.
Hello, mistake
The
here.
music was already written.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Nothing-
and they
nothing
use
for
that.
Richard
but
to do.
anyway, so it's,
But we'll get
it's
to
still
that.
two dead white guys. But this is a
Well,
a
one was
living,
alive at the time.
This is a living black woman who wrote
Okay.
this, and I think it makes a difference as to the authenticity of characters. You know, I mean, Carmen Jones has survived and will survive beyond us.
Telling me you have to be a black woman to write about black women means that a black woman cannot write about anyone but black
what
women.
I'm saying is that the black woman wrote a black story. I
Right,
didn't say wrote
okay.
black women.
All right, fair
I'm
enough.
saying that she wrote a black story.
Fair enough.
And because these are characters who speak not unlike the characters in Carmen Jones, I'm saying that the authenticity is with the woman's play, not with that.
Okay.
That's all. It's like Porgy and Bess, you know?
All right. Fair enough. But
Thank you.
and although I did enjoy the cast, and that's J.P. Alphonse Nicholson as the trumpet player. Hope I get this right.
J. Alphonse Nicholson.
Christolyn Lloyd as the good girl.
Right. Pumpkin.
Yes, that's Keith Randolph Smith and
Francois
excuse me,
Baptiste.
as his band, his
Right.
blue,
P-Sam, his piano
and
player.
Simone Missick as
Right.
the
Black Widow.
who's one of the people who wants to buy the
Right.
place. You have to wonder though, where is it? None of them seem to have any money, so how they're planning to buy it.
So the way she dresses, she's got something. We don't know where she got it from.
Well, later on she says she doesn't. So
Right.
that's one of the holes I had in the story.
And why would she want to live in that place?
Yeah,
There are holes,
and the ending seems very forced.
Well, the ending is the beginning, as I said. So.
Yes, but it doesn't. It still didn't work for me, and that was a problem.
But
with
you know,
the
it's a
play.
parable, as much as it is a play. I think, for the time period and what was happening to black musicians at the time, and wanting to keep the music pure. I mean, all of that was going on in the story as well. It is. It may be hard to. It may have been. It may be the levels didn't work. But when you look around, the setting was all of these copies of sheets.
Albums and posters,
Posters,
for
yes.
jazz legends.
Oh, for black jazz
Black
legends
jazz.
from that time period, and everybody from Big Mama Thornton to
Louis
Count
Armstrong.
Basie and Louis Armstrong. So you really, it tries very hard to give you that feeling.
It does, and does it succeed to an extent? But all in all, just taking the whole package together, I would only give it 3 playbills.
I would give it 4.
Really?
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I felt that Rubin got the sense of place. You know, even though it was set up in such a strange way, I came into it right away and thought, oh yeah, this works for me.
Okay.
So
Well, I will go into something that he also directed.
yeah, which I didn't get to either.
Which, unfortunately, which I felt worked a lot better. And this is Othello, by another dead white guy named William Shakespeare.
Right.
And this is, of course, at the Delacorte Theater. It is the free
Right.
Shakespeare in the park.
And how odd it is that 450 years later, his black character still rings true in many ways. And this is a man who probably never met a black man in his life, if
Who knows?
if more than one, because he lived in Elizabethan England.
Okay.
So interesting, I think,
All right. Well, this is our second Othello in a year, a third if you count the rap version, which I thought
would,
was
yes.
excellent.
Right.
There was the one with James Bond and Mrs. Maisel, who was
Yes,
which is James
Daniel
Bond.
Craig.
Daniel Craig, thank you.
Right.
Which was
And David Oyelowo, who played Martin Luther King, and someone else in another movie. So
right, and that was set a more modern setting, a more innovative. This is a more traditional staging, but a far superior production,
Really?
which I really
I really
did.
liked the one downtown. So
Did enjoy.
I'm
Well,
sorry I missed
we
this.
differed on that.
Yeah.
And this has Corey Stoll as Iago.
Iago. And I never
And-
understood why the play isn't called Iago. We've had this conversation before.
And you know what? I agree with you.
It happened again? Oh.
Except if you saw. Oh, my
this guy, the new
goodness.
guy? Let me see if I can.
Here we go. Here we go. Chuck Waddy Iruji.
Oh, Yeah, I think you did as well as I could possibly have done. That's not
As
something
Othello.
I know.
Now, I admit the first scenes, I'm thinking doesn't strike me as an Othello because he's very clean and he's very young looking. Well, Othello is a general, so he's been battle tested. You'd feel he'd be a little more grizzled. But when he approaches the madness, the craziness, the frustration, the jealousy, then he really comes into his own. And
Well, what about the love scenes with her? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay,
Not
just
quite, but
curious.
not quite as well, I
Okay.
think. And it is a rare Othello who is not totally enveloped or overshadowed by the Iago.
right.
If you saw this production, you say, okay, yes, it could be called Othello.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, now I'm doubly sorry. I'll go to the library and
There
watch
you
it
go.
because...
Heather Lynn is a wonderful, beautiful Desdemona. And it's a strong production that I think really captures the essence of the play.
One critic that I read said something about Emilia, who's a secondary character, that's Iago's wife.
Yes.
Being really exceptional in this. Was
She
she?
was. She was.
Okay.
She was. Let's
Interesting.
see.
Because it's a wonderful role, and I always wanted to play it. And it's
You'd be
a
good in
comic
it.
role that turns serious at the end. You know, not
Yeah, well, here it's a very I'm just trying to find her. Emilia is her name? I don't think
yes,
so.
Emilia.
Oh, yes. Allison Wright. It's the cast is in alphabetical order.
Oh, wait.
Who is-
We've seen her in things. I don't remember what.
Well,
We could
you
look.
would have liked her. Yes.
Yeah.
She is. She does do a good role. And we had a little comic relief the night because there was a family of raccoons that kept walking the stage.
God loves Central Park.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And you had rain.
And it started
You
raining.
said you had rain. Right,
We did.
Right.
We
right.
did.
What would you
but
give it?
I would give this between 3.5 and 4. I think.
Okay.
I,
For the third one in such a short period of time, that's a very good. I will say
Yes.
just one more thing. David Oyelowo was also a young. They were Army. Iago was the older sergeant, and he was the younger.
Again,
Man.
Could be, but still,
Well-
I think the best production I've ever seen still remains when
The
I saw
rap-
30 years ago
The
with
one with Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer and James Earl
Earl
Jones. But it was Christopher Plummer.
Stole that play, and anybody could
that
steal
one you
something
had
from James Earl Jones. Yes.
And I say that one, yes, you could call it
Yes.
Iago.
Yes.
I mean, one of the
But
most
you know, one
amazing
of the-
Shakespearean
One of the
experiences I've
things
ever
you
had.
just said, one of the things that Iago is so jealous of so many things about Othello, but he was also younger. Another thing for him to be jealous of.
Well, here in this
know.
case, Iago was older, or he certainly looks
That's
older.
what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So if Iago was older, then that's another thing to be jealous of, that he was younger. Anyway,
We should move on.
I'm moving right on
Yes.
to a play that is so dear to my heart. I saw the original version in 2002. We're going to super in a cover I did for the late lamented New York resident, where I followed the story from its incipient days to its final production and interviewed all the people involved. At the time, in 2002, they used to have labs, and shows were put up in the lab. And Stephen Adly Gerges stepped out on the stage and said, "Hey guys, please forgive me. I don't have an ending for the show. So you're going to see it, and then maybe we can talk about it, and it'll come to me." And we really saw 2/3 of a show. And he actually writes that on the board that they always put up at the signature about what the author has to say about the play. Phil Hoffman put him in a corner and said, "You get me an ending, and you get it now. We're not going to do this show."
Okay.
And he came up with an ending. Now that's.
And given where we are, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to come to an ending.
I don't have to go that far. Our Lady of 121st Street is a nun has died. People who were in her class, some who liked her, some who didn't, have come to her memorial. The nun's body is missing. There's a detective. Who's a drunk. There's a guy with no pants on. This is Stephen Adly Gerges, who wrote The Mother Effer with a Hat. So he writes really intriguing characters. He also won a Pulitzer Prize for Riverside, Between Riverside and Crazy. And all of his characters are interesting. 95% of them are minority. They're played by minority actors. It's a wonderful opportunity for each of them. It's an actor's delight. Does it hold together? It didn't hold together so much the first time. It doesn't hold together so much now.
And your conclusion?
I had a wonderful time. I would go see this again and again and again because it's such a marvelous play. And I would
Okay.
give it a 4.
Okay.
It was directed.
I went. I'm sorry.
I just want to quickly say that it was directed by, and I've got to find it, directed by Felicia Rashad.
Okay.
Who is Condola Rashad's mom.
Right.
Okay, that's all. Okay.
Okay.
See, now
well,
they call
I
her
went to
Condola
see a
Rashad's
play that
mom,
was
yes.
100% minority.
Okay.
Carmen Jones. And this is the Bizet's Carmen, as adapted and reconceived by Oscar Hammerstein.
Without Richard Rush.
That
I'm
Oscar
sorry, yes.
Hammerstein shortly after he did
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Okay.
So he moved it up. This production was choreographed by Bill T. Jones, directed by John Doyle. And it takes place in a World War II munitions factory.
Well, that is, it took place in a cigarette factory, but
All
that's
right,
okay.
well, again.
He took, Doyle is marvelous.
It's the same old Carmen by Anika Nomi Rose.
Anika Nomi Rose.
Beautifully played here.
Gorgeous.
She's seductive, she's slinky, she's very confident in herself. Clifton Duncan is the soldier of her affections.
Joe.
Joe, yes. And
Played by Harry Belafonte in the movie.
right,
yes.
and Lindsay Roberts, I'm sorry, yes, Lindsay Roberts is the good girl, the girl who was in love
the one he's in love with
Joe.
initially,
Now,
yes.
I have some plot problems with it because it's like, well, Carmen lures Joe, wants him to desert the army, go to Chicago, even though she knows that there's a hunky boxer who she really likes
Well, no,
waiting
she
for
doesn't.
him.
She meets Joe first, and then she meets the hunky boxer.
But when she's going to Chicago, she knows the hunky boxer is there.
Yes,
That's the thing.
that's why she wants to go.
Yes, she wants to go, but she doesn't need him to get there. That's the thing.
Well, you know, that's the whole idea is that she's an
And it's
an enticing woman, and she can get what she wants.
Yes, except at the end when she goes a little too far,
Well.
and she gets something she doesn't want,
Yes.
namely a knife.
Yes,
Bottom line is that the show is a very intimate setting, very intimate production that somehow loses its intimacy during the second act because I think we just stop caring. I don't know if that's again.
Well, you maybe
the story.
stopped caring. I didn't see it. I don't know.
I did. Well, that's why we're going with my
Yes, I know.
take on this here. But staging itself is good. Again, story is a problem, and this production cannot overcome it, or does not. Acting is wonderful. Singing is wonderful. But again, it does, at least for me, petered out at the end. It starts very, very strongly. And I would see this as much as for the curiosity value and
What
the history
about
of it as for the entertainment.
What about the beat it out on a drum, beat out that rhythm on a drum, which is one of my favorite numbers of all time?
I think you would appreciate, as an individual numbers, you would appreciate them. I would give this a 3 playbills, and we are just about out of time.
Okay.
So when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.